Welcome to Recap King. In this video, we will explain The Beast. This movie tells the story of a father's struggle to save his little daughter from criminals who want to turn his daughter into a commercial sex worker. Will the man be able to save his daughter? Let's find out in The Beast. The Beast begins by showing a man named Leonida, who is a former captain of the Italian Special Forces, who always carries out dangerous missions that seem impossible to most people. Leonida always manages to complete every mission. However, on his final mission, Leonida experienced a painful incident that left him severely traumatized, requiring the man to regularly see a psychiatrist and take sedatives to relieve depression. One day, Leonida visits the school to see his daughter, Teresa, playing a baseball game with her schoolmates. After that, Leonida visits his son, Matteo, who seems to ignore his presence and walks away. Leonida then converses with his wife, Angela, about their children's problems. Leonida apparently doesn't live in the same house with his wife and children since a few years ago, because Leonida chose to live alone due to his severe depression. Leonida is worried about his unstable mental state, which may harm his family if they live together. Even so, Leonida promised his wife to return to the family once his condition had recovered. That night, Angela was about to leave the house because she had a meeting that she had to attend. Angela then asked Matteo to take Teresa out to dinner and look after the little girl while she was away. Matteo then took Teresa to a fast food restaurant, even though Teresa asked her brother to take her to their father's house, but Matteo refused because he didn't want to meet his father. While they were eating, Matteo saw two of his friends outside the restaurant. Matteo then asked Teresa to wait at the restaurant while he would meet his friends outside. Matteo seemed so absorbed in the conversation with his two friends that he just remembered his sister was waiting for him alone in the restaurant. However, upon returning to the restaurant, Matteo was surprised that his sister had disappeared. According to one of the waitresses, Teresa was kidnapped by a man driving a jeep. Matteo panicked and then contacted his father and told about the incident of Teresa's kidnapping. After that, Matteo also reported the kidnapping of his sister to the police so that Teresa could be found immediately. Not long after, Leonida arrived at the scene, along with the arrival of the police, led by Detective Simonetti. Simonetti then told Leonida that he had mobilized all his men to find Teresa by tracking down all the jeeps that were seen in the vicinity when the kidnapping incident took place. Not long after, Simonetti got information from his men who managed to track down a jeep that looked suspicious, because it was trying to run away when the police wanted to check it out. When Simonetti orders the rest of his men to help find the jeep, Leonida decides to steal Simonetti's car to chase after the kidnapper to save his daughter. With the help of the police radio and Simonetti's car, Leonida can easily find out where the jeep used by the kidnapper is. Leonida then took a shortcut and managed to catch up to the kidnapper's car. He tried to squeeze the jeep, but his efforts failed and the jeep then drove at high speed. On the other hand, Angela is very shocked when she learns that her daughter has been kidnapped. Meanwhile, Simonetti and his team try to find out who Leonida really is, who turns out to be a former Special Forces captain who had led the war to help the United States government in Afghanistan. However, Leonida experienced a psychological disorder after carrying out the last mission, so now his mental condition is very unstable. Simonetti thinks that Teresa's abductor is probably Leonida's enemy in the past. Simonetti then asked his men to keep an eye on Leonida, to anticipate that he would not do anything that could harm others while hunting down his daughter's abductor. After losing track of the kidnapper, Leonida then tries to find out where the kidnapper is by approaching a drug dealer, hoping to get information from drug dealers who usually know about crimes that occur in the city. After knocking out some drug dealers at a gas station and getting information from them, Leonida then goes to a nightclub to meet a drug dealer. Once there, Leonida overhears a woman say about a little girl and also a jeep. Feeling suspicious, Leonida immediately followed the woman who was about to meet her boyfriend. Leonida followed the woman until she arrived at a place where Leonida finally saw the woman's lover, who was none other than the kidnapper. From their conversation, Leonida finally finds out that Teresa has been sold by the kidnapper, and the woman seems happy that her boyfriend has finally made a lot of money. An enraged Leonida bursts in there, strangling the kidnapper and getting into a fierce fight with him. Knowing Leonida's arrival, the woman rushed into hiding. Leonida was stabbed in the stomach, before finally slitting the kidnapper's throat. But unfortunately, the kidnapper was already dead when Leonida asked who the man had sold his daughter to. Leonida tries to chase the woman for information, but she manages to escape. Leonida decided to take the kidnapper's cell phone and try to find information from the cell phone. On the following night, Simonetti and his men try to disguise themselves as buyers and make transactions with mafia known to have human trafficking business to find Teresa's whereabouts. However, the mobsters already knew of Simonetti's disguise and his men, so a shootout was inevitable. Elsewhere, Leonida visits an old friend to find information about his daughter's kidnapping from the kidnapper's cell phone. It is then revealed that on his last mission, Leonida had to lose all his men, while he was the only survivor. This made him very devastated and felt very guilty because Leonida felt responsible for the deaths of all his men. His friend tried to encourage Leonida and said that their deaths were not his fault, and Leonida's men also knew the risks they had to face while carrying out missions. Even so, Leonida still feels guilty and devastated by the deaths of his subordinates. After getting information about who the kidnapper sold his daughter to, Leonida rushed to the place to find his daughter's whereabouts. Upon arrival, Leonida sneaks in and sees the woman who is the kidnapper's lover being held captive by a man named Mozart, who is none other than the crime lord who often conducts human trafficking business. Mozart seems annoyed that Teresa's kidnapping has apparently caught the attention of the police, where the police managed to sniff out his business and kill several of his men to find Teresa. Because of that, Mozart decided to kill the woman for making his business a little difficult due to the carelessness of her boyfriend. Leonida finally found Teresa while he was hiding. Teresa, who noticed her father's presence, was then asked to remain calm by Leonida. However, just as Leonida was about to save Teresa, one of Mozart's men caught her and immediately called another comrade. Teresa is soon taken away by one of Mozart's men, while Leonida must fight Mozart's minions alone. After eliminating Mozart's men one by one, Leonida must face off against Mozart's most formidable minion. After a fairly fierce fight, Leonida, who was previously seriously injured and also very exhausted after a long fight, was finally defeated by the henchman and his body was thrown into the water. Meanwhile elsewhere, Mattia, who was at the police station, was watching a video recording showing his father's conversation with a military general. Leonida at that time was still a special forces captain who was highly respected in the military. However, Leonida had to experience severe shocks on his last mission, so that the man experienced prolonged trauma and depression, which made him deliberately stay away from his family in order to protect them. After knowing the real reason why his father had purposely isolated himself from his family, Mattia felt very guilty, because all this time, the young man had thought that his father had really left them. The next day, Mattia and his mother visited Leonida, who was being treated at the hospital after the police managed to find Leonida, who was still alive when they stormed Mozart's residence. However, upon arrival, the police did not find Mozart and his henchmen, who had already fled. When Mattia went to his father's treatment room, Leonida then asked his son to take a clip on the nameplate to open his handcuffs, because the police handcuffed Leonida for security. When a policeman entered Leonida's treatment room, the man immediately took his gun and asked the police to contact his headquarters and investigate all assets owned by Mozart, because Mozart must be hiding in one of his properties. Knowing that Mozart owns the property of an abandoned skyscraper, Leonida concludes that he is holding Teresa there. After preparing himself, Leonida rushed there by driving a car with Mattia. But halfway through, Leonida asks Mattia to come down and wait at home while he will save Teresa. Long story short, Leonida arrived at the abandoned building and immediately killed off Mozart's minions one by one. Meanwhile, Mozart is in the middle of a transaction to sell Teresa to a mobster. Leonida's appearance then made Mozart panic. The man then shot Leonida and tried to knock him off the roof of the building, but Leonida managed to turn things around and knock the man from a height. Leonida finally found his daughter lying helplessly in a room. However, when he was about to take Teresa away, Leonida was confronted by a mobster who had transacted with Mozart before. The man then pointed a gun at Leonida. But then, the man was successfully paralyzed by Simonetti. After everything was done, Teresa was immediately taken to the hospital for medical treatment. On the other hand, Simonetti and Leonida thanked each other and were relieved to have solved the case, and Teresa was found safe. Finally, Teresa was reunited with her family. Angela and Mattia looked so happy that Teresa had finally returned home safely. Leonida just stares at his family from a distance and looks very relieved that finally all his family members are reunited and they are doing well. As Leonida was about to leave, Mattia called him and asked him to return home and live with them. However, Leonida still refused. Leonida told his son that he will try harder to recover his mental condition and return to live with his family as soon as possible, because he also misses his family very much.